Okay, to show the parsing order, how you play with that, I replay these logs in here. Again, as I show in a separate video, everything that you need to do to create this lab on the free QRadar CE, it's provided, the details on that video. But so I replay this, and notice that I'm displaying the payload, and these two events comes as unknown. We're going to deal with that later. This one is a Linux. This one is a Linux event. Let me actually parse this so we can see the actual event. We will deal with this one later. But we only replay one, so there has not been a chance for it to be auto-discovered. And this one is a custom log. We don't have a parser for, right? And this is, ABC company is a protocol system defender, and the event ID is the console login and all that. And because the two concepts are so intertwined, the parsing and the DSM, let's actually quickly create a simple parser for this ABC company system, right? So we right click and open it in the DSM editor. So we're going to create a new one. We're going to call it ABC Company System Defender. Click Save. And we're going to select it. Before we proceed, I prefer to actually take a few things that we are not going to be using. In here, we're not doing any IPv6 stuff that we need. We don't need the source MAC. Yeah, that should be enough to have everything fit into, well, almost fit into one page, right? Oh, well, we don't need the user port. So source IP we need. Where is the source port? This one we don't need. Okay. We won't be doing anything with the protocol anyway, but that's much cleaner. So the first thing that we need to do is to start mapping, to capture the different properties. You should always have an event ID, so let's start with that one. We're going to override the system behavior, and one of the advantages of the DSM editor is that you can actually it doesn't have to be just regex. It can be JSON safe, generic lists. Actually, there's a CSV list on 7.4. There are even more options here, but you don't have to always have to deal with regex. So this is a leaf format, so we're going to select leaf in here, and notice that automatically, bang, it finds that particular event. So we click here, OK. We are done with that one. Let's select an event category that we always need. So we go here. And the problem that we have in this particular case is that we don't have an event category nowhere to be found in these logs. So we need to kind of hard code that one. And to do that, there is a very simple trick. So we're going to override the system behavior, and we are going to use regex, but in reality all we need to do is put dot asterisk and then hard code here the name that we want to give it, and this is going to be, we're going to call this system defender. Again, this is a simple trick to force that the event category of all the events coming in here will be that system defender one. Let's grab a username. Scroll down here. Well, actually, we can type it in here, so we don't have to look for it. Username. We override the system behavior. It is also leaf. Select lift, and bang, it automatically finds that for me. We have a source IP. Source IP, here it is. Same thing. It's going to be leaf, and it finds it for me there. What else? We have a log source time. This is an interesting one. Log source time. This is it. Now, in this one, it's also going to be leaf. We have it here, you know, that dev time format. So this is going to be leaf as well. We are going to call this one dev time, and the format for that, we're going to actually grab it from here. Actually grab that format. See if I get this right. Put it in the clipboard, paste it here. So we are done. Let's say that that's about it. I mean, this is a very simple example. Now what we need to do is the next step, which is the mapping. And notice that in the previous video we spoke about unknown and store. Notice that you have those categories in here. So when the parser fails to identify the particular log that is passed to it, it will put it as a store of unknown. Notice that sim generic is not here, because sim generic is when the event is not even passed to the actual parser. So we need to create a new mapping, and the event ID from the logs, we can see that is console login. This in here, right? And the category is going to be the one that we had coded, system defender. So we need to choose one. We're going to create a new QID. The name is going to be console login to system defender. Let's put all that together. The high level category is going to be authentication, because it's a login thing. So authentication is right here. And this is going to be user successful login or something like that. Let's see what we find here. Using user login success, that's the right category. In the description, it's always good to put some description. Description. And we can save this. We can click OK now. Create. So we are almost done. The only thing we need to review here is the actual auto discover. Notice that even for DSMs that you create yourself, you can set them to be auto discoverable. So if we enable that, we are actually presented with this advanced option in which, you know, how many events do you want to get? Let me actually make that just 5 of them. And you see the minimum success rate, how many times I'm going to be trying to deal with this. And this is actually, I covered this in a separate video, this for structure type of logs, it will automatically extract all the categories, all the properties that is, all the properties that it will find and assign them directly. So we are done here. We can actually save this one and close it. Now back here to the log activity tab. Let me put this in real time. Let me go to the events and let me actually loop in here to send them continuously. And let's see if I did this right. Auto detect should work. Yeah. So let's see. So we got actually auto-detected both the Linux one as well as the ABC company system defender. Good. Let me stop the replaying of the logs. Let's go back to QRadar. If we go to the admin tab and we go to log source, the log source management activity, we see, let me actually sort this by latest event. We see that actually the other way around, that we have the system defender Linux host 1 and the actual Linux OS at the same log source identifier, right? We're not going to get into the parsing order just yet. What we're going to be doing is that we're going to create another DSM for the same Linux host 1 log source identifier, but this one we're going to make it UDSM just to explain some characteristics of the UDSM parser. So we're going to call it universal DSM. The log source type is universal DSM. We are not going to do coalescing. Let's go to the protocol and we will put Linux host 1, which is the same as the other one. Because we added this one manually, instead of being auto-discovered, we need to deploy changes. Let me actually do that and pause the video until that completes. So we have those 3 DSMs for the same log source identifier, Linux host 1. Let's actually look at the parsing order. This is the button that I was referring to, right? So let's click in it and see what do we have. So we have the other stuff that we did for Carbon Black, hostname and host B, but we have Linux host 1 is what we want. So the number 1 is the universal DSM, and this is the one that grabs everything and should always be put at the end. And notice that it's not auto-discover. Then the first one that was auto-discover was the Linux host, and then the ABC company. Let's actually, without touching anything, let's actually replay the logs and see what happens. Go over here, replay those logs, and see what we get. And notice that the universal DSM is grabbing them all. Both logs events are sent to the universal DSM. The universal DSM says, yeah, that's me, and fails to identify the actual event. And that is precisely to illustrate that that's not what you should do. The universal DSM should be at the end. So let's actually go back to the parsing order and move the universal DSM all the way to the bottom. Okay, and let's actually well, let's play it like that first. Okay, let's go back here to the log activity. Let's put this in real time. It's actually the logs are being played now constantly. Is that the case? Let me make sure that we play a couple of those. Let's actually stop it and see what we get. Well, now the UDSM doesn't get any one of those, right? As we see, things work well. We got the Linux event being recognized as the Linux server, and the ABC company recognized by the right parser, but there's something we can do better. I mean, this is working well, but it's not very efficient. Why? Well, because if we remember that when we go here, well, actually that's the way we want it to be. Sorry, my bad. We want this, which is the structure, to actually go first, and it fails fast. If it's something that is for Linux, it's going to pass it right after the Linux one, and the Linux will recognize it. So that's the best alternative. And then leave always the universal DSN for last.